In the sweltering heat of August 1854, London stands as the magnificent capital of the modern industrial world. The city pulses with the energy of 2.5 million souls, driving the engine of the vast global empire. Grand architecture and scientific marvels define an era of unprecedented progress and great human achievement. Yet beneath the veneer of Victorian civilization, a catastrophic failure of infrastructure quietly looms near. This is the vivid tale of a metropolis that has outgrown its foundations and the heavy price its people must pay. What happens when the greatest city on earth cannot provide the most basic necessity of life to its citizens? History books often focus on wars and kings, but the true battle for survival happens in the narrow alleys. A mystery unfolds in the heart of Soho that will challenge the medical establishment and change science forever. Is the danger floating in the yellow fog, or does it hide in the very water that sustains the neighborhood? The official narrative blames the poor for their plight, but one man dares to look for a deeper hidden cause. To understand this crisis, we must first walk the vibrant streets of Golden Square before the tragedy strikes. Soho exists as a dense patchwork of small businesses, family homes, and bustling artisan workshops and pubs. Tailors, grocers, and laborers live side by side in a community defined by hard work and close quarters living. The streets teem with the sounds of commerce, children playing, and the constant rhythm of Victorian city life. But the infrastructure of this medieval village cannot support the weight of the massive modern population boom. Cesspools overflow in basements, and the soil itself becomes saturated with the waste of thousands of residents. The air hangs heavy over the district, fueling the popular belief that bad smells cause fatal diseases in man. Medical authorities preach the theory of miasma, convinced that the atmosphere itself is the silent killer here. They believe that cleaning the air and removing bad odors is the only way to protect public health and safety. August 31st begins like any other summer day, but the night brings a terrifying transformation to Soho. Within hours, the vibrant energy of the neighborhood vanishes, replaced by a sudden and eerie silence in town. Families that were healthy in the morning find themselves fighting for survival as the sun goes down that day. The illness strikes with terrifying speed, claiming lives before medical help can even be summoned to the scene. Over 127 people perish in the first 3 days within a few city blocks alone in Soho. Panic spreads faster than the disease as residents flee their homes to escape the invisible poison in the air. The once busy streets of Soho stand empty, save for the carts arriving to collect those who have passed away. Authorities remain paralyzed by their adherence to the miasma theory, urging people to breathe clean, fresh air. They order the flushing of sewers into the Thames, unknowingly making the environmental disaster much worse. But amidst the chaos and fear, one physician steps forward with a radical and unpopular scientific hypothesis. Dr. John Snow, a pioneer in anesthesia, has long doubted that the air is responsible for these sudden outbreaks. He observes that the affliction affects the gut, not the lungs, suggesting a completely different vector exists. Snow believes the agent of death is ingested, not inhaled, a concept that mocks established science of the time. He needs irrefutable proof to convince a skeptical establishment that refuses to abandon old beliefs and ways. The doctor begins his investigation immediately, walking the deserted streets while the danger persists there. He visits the homes of the afflicted, speaking with grieving families to trace the source of their water supply. His method is not based on abstract theory, but on hard data collected from the heart of the crisis zone itself. Snow meticulously records the location of every fatality on a map of the neighborhood's winding, narrow streets. A chilling pattern begins to emerge from the black ink dots scattered across the parchment of the district map. The deaths cluster tightly around a single public water source located on the busy Broad Street corner in Soho. Yet the authorities argue that the pump provides the clearest and most refreshing water in the entire area. They point to the fact that people travel from miles away just to taste the cool water from this specific well. Snow persists, diving deeper into the lives of the victims to find the connection everyone else misses entirely. He discovers that households with private wells or different water sources remain completely untouched by death. A local workhouse with 500 residents records almost no cases, thanks to its own private supply of water. This anomaly provides a crucial piece of evidence that contradicts the theory of an airborne plague in the city. If the miasma theory were true, everyone breathing the air in the workhouse should have fallen ill immediately. Snow finds another striking outlier in a local brewery where the workers drink only malt liquor and no water. Not a single man in the brewery succumbs to the illness, protecting them from the contaminated pump nearby. The evidence mounts, but the clock is ticking as more residents fall victim to the contaminated supply daily. Snow discovers a widow in Hampstead who died, despite living miles away from the poisonous Soho air and fog. Her niece reveals that the woman paid a courier to deliver a bottle of water from Broad Street every single day. This single fact acts as the final key to unlocking the mystery that has baffled the greatest minds of the age. It proves that the location matters less than the specific water source consumed by the individuals involved. The map now tells a story of undeniable clarity, with the Broad Street pump standing at the epicenter of death. Snow approaches the Board of Guardians on September 7th, with his revolutionary findings in his hands. The local councilmen are skeptical, holding fast to the traditions and beliefs they have always known to be true. They debate the implications, fearing that closing the pump might cause a panic or riot in the streets of Soho. Snow presents his data with the precision of a scientist and the urgency of a man saving his neighbors' lives. He does not ask them to believe his theory, but simply to look at the undeniable pattern on the map before them. The tension in the room is palpable as the Guardians weigh the cost of action against the cost of human life. Reluctantly, and with great skepticism, the board agrees to perform an experiment to test his radical claim. The order is given to disable the pump, a decision that marks a turning point in the history of modern medicine. On September 8, the handle of the Broad Street pump is physically removed, forever halting the water flow. The neighborhood watches in confusion as their primary source of water is suddenly taken away from them all. Almost immediately, the number of new cases in the district begins to plummet in a dramatic and visible fashion. The curve of the outbreak flattens, and the community slowly begins to recover from the traumatic week of loss. Snow's intervention saves countless lives, though the scientific community remains slow to accept his findings. The pump handle becomes a symbol of a new era, where evidence triumphs over superstition and ancient tradition. But the investigation does not end with the removal of the handle, for the source must be found and verified. Later excavations reveal that a cracked cesspit leaked directly into the well water of the public pump nearby. The proximity of waste and water confirms the terrifying reality of London's inadequate sanitation systems. This discovery forces the city to confront the unsanitary conditions that defined Victorian urban life then. It becomes clear that the rapid expansion of the city has outpaced its ability to care for its people safely. The tragedy at Broad Street ignites a conversation about public health that will span the entire globe soon. Snow's map becomes the founding document of epidemiology, the science of tracking disease patterns in society. It demonstrates that data visualization can reveal hidden truths that the human eye cannot perceive on its own. The ghost map changes how cities are built, how pipes are laid, and how governments protect citizens daily. Engineers and planners begin to design the massive sewer systems that still serve London to this very day. The great project of sanitation begins, separating clean water from waste for the first time in human history. This shift represents one of the most significant advancements in the history of human civilization and life. It marks the moment when humanity decides that disease is not a divine punishment, but a solvable problem. The logic is simple yet profound. Keep the water clean, and the people will remain safe and healthy always. While the germ theory is still years away, Snow's work lays the practical foundation for its future acceptance. The legacy of those who perished in Soho lives on in the safety of every modern tap we turn on in our homes. 616 people lost their lives in the outbreak, a heavy price for a lesson in hygiene and care. Their silent sacrifice forced the world to look at the invisible infrastructure that sustains our lives daily. The silence of Soho in 1854 echoes through time as a warning against complacency and ignoring factual data. It reminds us that the greatest threats to civilization often come from what we cannot see or smell around us. Snow's persistence teaches that one voice, armed with the truth, can dismantle centuries of ignorance and fear. The scientific method proved to be a more powerful tool than all the superstition of the Victorian age combined. Today, the site of the pump is a quiet monument to the triumph of reason over fear and misinformation in cities. The bustling streets of Soho have returned, now safe from the invisible killer that once stalked them quietly. But the map remains, a stark black and white testament to the fragility of life in the crowded modern city. It serves as a permanent reminder that public health is a collective responsibility we all share together now. Every drop of clean water in a modern city is a direct inheritance from the tragedy of Broad Street that year. The connection between sanitation and survival is now a fundamental truth of urban planning worldwide today. Cities across Europe and America begin to tear up their streets to install the arteries of modern sanitation. The investment in public health infrastructure yields a massive increase in life expectancy globally for all. Snow proves that the health of the poorest citizen is intimately connected to the health of the richest one. Disease knows no boundaries, and therefore the protection against it must be universal and systemic in nature. The pump handle is gone, but the lesson it taught remains as sharp and relevant as it was back in that time. We learn that observing the world with clear eyes is the first step toward solving its greatest problems now. The detective work of one quiet doctor managed to stop a killer that no army could ever hope to defeat alone. His legacy is written not just in books, but in the blueprints of every modern metropolis on planet Earth. The fear of the miasma fades, replaced by a new understanding of microbiology and bacterial science in time. London transforms from a medieval death trap into the model of the modern sanitary industrial city we know. The Thames is cleaned, the sewers are built, and the great stench of the capital finally dissipates forever. This transformation allows London to grow even larger, supporting millions more in relative safety and health. The resilience of the Soho community becomes a beacon of hope for other cities facing similar crises globally. They rebuilt their lives on the very streets where tragedy struck, trusting in the new science of the future. The shopkeepers returned, the children played again, and the silence was filled with life once more in Soho. But the world had changed fundamentally, shifting from mysticism to the era of evidence-based medicine rapidly. No longer would society accept that death was an inevitable consequence of living in a large, crowded city. The right to clean water began to be seen as a fundamental human right, not a luxury for the wealthy alone. Institutions changed, laws were rewritten, and the role of government expanded to protect the public good. The medical profession humbled itself, accepting that the old ways were wrong and new paths were needed now. It is a story of how a single insight can ripple outwards to save hundreds of millions of lives across time. The map of death became a map of life, guiding humanity out of the dark ages of sanitary ignorance forever. We see the power of data to cut through fear and provide a clear path forward in times of crisis and doubt. The Broad Street pump stands as the silent protagonist in a drama that redefined the modern world completely. It was a humble object, yet it became the fulcrum upon which the history of public health turned decisively. The handle is removed, the water stops, the dying ends, and a new age of understanding begins for the world. Science prevails, fear retreats, the city survives, and the future is secured through knowledge and truth. What seemed like a local tragedy became the catalyst for a global revolution in health and human hygiene. Millions of lives are saved in the decades that follow, thanks to the precedent set in these narrow streets. The logic of the map extends beyond cholera, influencing how we track all manner of modern outbreaks today. John Snow dies just 4 years later, likely unaware of the full magnitude of his contribution to humanity. Yet his work achieved immortality, woven into the hidden systems that protect us every single day we live. The mystery of the Blue Death was solved, proving that human ingenuity is our greatest defense against nature. We walk these streets today safe from the shadow, standing on the shoulders of a quiet giant of science. Explore the hidden history of the systems that silently sustain our modern world and protect our lives daily.